First of all, I want you to know I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, excellent. I'm a big fan of MyEmployees. So
I appreciate that. I heard. That's funny. Let me introduce you first. Okay, guys, this is Jonathan Powers. He's the general manager of Courtyard by Marriott in San Bruno, California. And if you would, Jonathan, I'd be really, really thankful if you'd share a little bit of your background prior to Marriott, what you do in the background. I know you've been at least 3 or 4 hotels, at least using us. So I know you've been around some. So give us a background.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. I've been a general manager for about 12 years. So
Wow.
I've been at all different properties. But
how many? How many properties?
I'm going to say it's 12 years. So I've been at probably maybe a general manager for 4 or 5 properties. 4 properties, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I got to count them all. But basically, started as an assistant. I started with MyEmployees. I was an assistant general manager for a Homewood Suites in Phoenix Biltmore area, and so we used MyEmployees and back then, and I love the program. So it was great. We had a really award-winning team, and we used to do these celebrations every single month. And so when I became a general manager myself, this was with Hilton Corporation. They moved me up to Boulder.
Right.
They didn't have that program, so immediately I was like, we need to get an Employee of the Month program, recognition program, and I want to celebrate and have either a luncheon or take people out to lunch every single month. And so that's something that the entire last 12 years that I've really instilled. So when I was over at Boulder, I basically signed up the program with MyEmployees, and then I ended up moving to California, and then I went to Sacramento, did the same thing, put you guys in place. I came out to San Francisco area, my favorite market out here. I was at a Homewood Suites for about 4 years, and they didn't have that program as well. And, didn't really have a good recognition program. I started with MyEmployees and said, oh, this is going to be great. And, and turned that team into an award-winning team as well. I've been at this Courtyard.
That's awesome.
I came to this Courtyard here in San Francisco Airport, very busy Courtyard, and started at this Courtyard. And, immediately Rapio was here as the AGM. So, and then I put this program in place and said, hey, we're going to start with this, new recognition program, and we're going to basically take everybody out to lunch every single month. And so, and it's worked wonders. We have an amazing team now, and we've taken just such good care of our employees and such. So it's been great. Yeah, it's been a really a good experience. So I really like it.
Well, let me say before I forget, I just want you to know for speaking for my team and I, we greatly appreciate you being with us so many years in so many places. So obviously you like our program and our people, and of course we like you. So it's a win-win, and we're happy to be a part of your success. That's awesome. Thank you for that.
That's great. I know I have, I was telling, recently I was just telling this story to one of your employees. Obviously, I'm sure they told you about it, but there's one of my favorite stories.
Ben told me, Benjamin.
Yeah, so I tell this story to some of my, to a lot of my team members, and I've told them to my sales team and stuff like that. And so I'll tell you the story. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. I'm not even sure if Rafi has heard the story or anything, but basically back when I was at the Homewood Suites in San Francisco Airport North, somebody had called. I was talking to somebody about, hey, we have this, did you get the new thing? And we have a new recognition, and they were talking, kind of coaching and everything. So I was engaging with one of your team, but I told them, I was like, one thing that I'm just disappointed in is that you guys had taken away the little Smarties. Okay.
He told me.
Okay, I probably have. But basically, you guys took away the little Smarties, and then you substitute it with like a little, there's like a little $100 bill, and there's like a little mint in there or whatever. And it's not the same thing.
The Postal Service gave us a really hard time about that, Jonathan.
Oh, I'm sure
that's why we changed the Postal Service.
Right. So basically,
as you can imagine, the government getting involved, right?
So I was like, and it's kind of funny too, because my favorite thing is like the person that I was talking to was like, yeah, I'm sorry, because that's kind of our, we do different things, and that's our new thing. And I was like, but you guys have been doing it for years, and I really, really like the Smarties.
That's right.
When I get the package, I always like to open it and stuff. And because I really like to get the little Smarties. I love those little candies and stuff and everything else. And they were like, yeah. And then so it took some time later, and I was engaging with one of your teams maybe about 5 months later or 6 months later or something like that. And I'll never forget it. I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I mean, I think that, this. And then again, I told him about the Smarties. And I understand you guys do different things and stuff like that. I really miss the Smarties. And your team was like, I wish I remember who this team member was, but your team was like, really?
Yeah.
That's what it would take is Smarties? Dude, no problem. We'll get you Smarties. If you want Smarties, we'll change it. We'll get you Smarties and stuff.
That's right.
And it's so funny. And I was like, and so next thing you know, I think they crammed a bunch of Smarties in and they sent it. And it's that little personal touch. And with Marriott, we're all about that too. Like, you should hear what we do for our guests. So we have like Ghirardelli chocolate. I'm sure that you like, everybody likes Ghirardelli. So basically for our members, our ambassadors that come in and stay with us, we have like a little trolley train, like a little toy stuffed with Ghirardelli chocolates, and we go and we put it with a custom letter and stuff in all of their rooms. And we have a couple of them stay with us.
That's a great idea.
And so we do all this, and then we have a lot of things that we do. We play games with our customers. We do a lot of stuff. And but with that particular story, I tell my salespeople this all the time. I basically tell my salespeople this story. And then one of my salespeople was calling around, and they had this red and white wine. And, basically, you can get your choice for one of my clients. And they said, it's, I don't drink wine, I drink beer. And so the funny thing about it is that there was like, oh, you drink beer? Well, I'm sorry, we just have wine. We just have white, so it's a white or red, and I was like, oh my God, so when I heard about it, I was like, oh my God, if it's beer, it's beer. Just go get them I'll go get them some craft beer. I'm going to go to the store right now and get them a six-pack of craft beer. And if that's what that makes them happy, which is really great.
There you go.
So, but other than that,
took care of what they needed there.
So other than that, I just, I really I'm always a big proponent. I always talk about your company a lot. And I think that, they're really on the ball. It's like you buy into it at the beginning of the year, and then at the end of the year, they're always like, come on, we need those names. We need that recognition. And they come up with all the little extra emails and books that you can read and recognition advice and all those kind of things. And it's just, it's a wonderful program to join for sure.
Well, I appreciate that very much so. And you're very kind to say so. Let me ask you, since we're talking about recognition, I was going to talk about that a little later, but since you started that, what's your philosophy on recognition, and why do you believe that it really matters to people?
Oh, I think I think recognition it means more to people than even if you're just, throwing more money at them or anything else. I mean, people want to know, I think just people want to know that they're doing a great job. I mean, everybody wants to feel important. Everybody wants to know that what they're doing matters and that they're doing a wonderful job. So I think that's really important. And I think there's a way to coach people and guide people through and get them seriously involved. I think the more involved, the more recognition you're showing them. And obviously people are going to make mistakes. They're going to have strengths and weaknesses. We work on people's competencies. But I think at the end of the day, you're building upon, you're building on those particular competencies that they like doing, things that they enjoy doing, things that they're, that they feel like they're making a huge impact. And it just goes a long way in developing your team members, and retaining that, and advancing that talent, throughout their career and, hopefully our organization as, Marriott. So,
yeah. And it starts at the top. If my people don't know that I appreciate them, they will really not appreciate our people to the same level.
Right.
And the same for you and any business person, obviously. So that's very critical. And speaking about developing your people, what's your number one tip for not just hotel managers, but managers in general, leaders, for developing your people? What would you say your number one key to your success in developing your people is?
It's I guess going back to the last point too, is that, I think that, your enterprising young leaders are gonna watch you anyway. And so it's pretty much that,
more is caught than taught.
Yeah. I think that, you could say all these things, but you have to be walking the walk too. You can't just talk the talk. You have to, you have to show them those. But I think the most important part is instilling really good values. So my number one tip is that kind of live those values. We talk about that a lot with Marriott, but, in some cultures, it's a cultural thing. Some cultures, they just, okay, it's on the board, read it if you want to, but they don't live those values and talk about it. And so that they don't that side of it, that it's like, hey, we want to put people first. And what's good examples of why we put people first? Or, we're pursuing operational excellence. What does that mean? That's kind of what we do every day. We're trying to make sure that we're doing our very best for our team members and our, our associates and our ownerships and our, our managers and, so forth. So it's like, or putting people first, or really developing them, or, those kind of things, and, embracing change. And so I think those things kind of carry through. So they kind of adopt those principles, and it breaks them out of that box and that mold. It gets them thinking about, their career in general, and how they can develop themselves as a lifelong learner, and, those kind of things. So it's, I think it's super, super important. And I think that I don't really let too much time pass when I'm talking to my, especially my leaders. It's like, I want to spend a lot of time with them. And, we all get busy and everything else, but it's like, everybody needs good coaching and pointed in the right direction and stuff. And even with, I guess, all my team members for the hotel, I have about 50 something employees, and I spend a little bit of time with each of them, and I don't like too much time to pass before I give them some feedback, and it's,
good.
Which I think is super important when you're talking about developing. So.
It is indeed. Just out of curiosity, have you read my book?
No, I haven't, but do
you have it?
For sure.
You have it, right?
No. Yeah, I do.
You don't have a copy?
Yeah.
I was going to say you should be a client.
Right. It came in the.
I challenge you.
So it's in her office.
Was that?
It's in her office.
Okay. All right, and she can read it first if she wants to.
I know. I was looking on your signature and stuff, and I was like, I haven't read his book. I haven't read his book yet, but I'm going to. So.
The reason I brought that up is because a lot of what you said, our philosophies will align, but there's a lot of things that I talk about in the book. Since you haven't read it, I'll explain one. For example, is our book club that we do at the company. About 15, 16 years ago, I was traveling the South. Well, it was earlier than that, honestly. I'm just going back 15, 16 years ago that we actually started it, formalized at the company. We started book club. I had about 11 employees at the time, way back then. And I remember I read this book by Dr. Tony Zeiss, and it was called The 12 Essential Laws for Becoming Indispensable. And I read it, and I said, you know what? My people really need to read this book. And I said it would really, really enhance their lives. It's a great book. And so I got another 10 copies besides the one I had. So I called everybody in the break room, Jonathan, and I said, okay, guys, here's a copy of these books. I said, next Wednesday, we're going to have pizza. I'm going to bring pizza in. Here's the book. Here's a highlighter. Here's a notebook. Read chapter 1. We're going to talk about it next week. And they were all so excited. No, they weren't. They weren't excited at all. I'm just kidding. I mean, when we got together, they all looked at each other, looked at me like, what is this? And I said, okay, we're going to talk about it. We all read the same chapter, but in this case, I started talking about the subject myself, and I related it to my life or someone in my life. And then one by one, the people opened up. And honestly, it takes about 4 weeks before everybody completely relaxes and is forthwith with their comments and their feedback. And man, it is the number one thing. Please read my book, because I'm telling you, that will blow your mind. It is the number one thing I have come across in my entire business career that has impacted culture more than anything else I could do.
Wow.
And please read the book. I'm just, I'm not saying it just because it's my book. I'm just saying, if you go back and listen to the interview I just did, that guy actually got my book years ago, put it on his shelf, like you said. He kept seeing it, and Ryan's his name, Ryan Ruiz. He's from California too. And he got the book down, he started reading it, and he said, I haven't read a book in years. And he said, my wife was looking at me weird, my kids were looking at me weird. What are you doing? Because he never read a book. So he started reading the book, and he sent me the sweetest email, Jonathan, telling me how that book impacted his life. And since then, he's read 2 or 3 other books since then. So,
wow.
I mean, this is all in the space of not even a month, right? So, I mean, he said it like lit a fire. And I really, you of all people, because you and I would be kindred spirits. So I think you would really get a lot of really useful, good ideas out of the book. So please read the book, okay?
Yeah, I'll read it. I'll send you an email too, and I'll give you my my thoughts and stuff on it.
You
My
don't
Kindle,
have to
right?
do that.
I like
I
to read
appreciate
my
that.
Kindle,
That's
so
awesome.
if I can put it on my Kindle, then I'll
All right,
look.
let me.
Yeah,
There you go. It's available in Kindle. I can send you
yeah,
a
of
Kindle
course.
version if you'd rather have that. I'll
Yeah,
send it to
no,
you.
I would. Yeah,
Okay,
send
cool.
it to me. That's great. But if
I'll do that.
I'll purchase it.
Absolutely. I'll send it to you.
I have a little bit.
Definitely.
I have a little bit of more extra time now. So,
I got you. Yes, you do, buddy.
yeah.
Speaking of that,
Hmm.
and the challenges forthwith that come with this mess that we're dealing with,
Hmm.
what advice would you give other hotel managers or other managers in other industries about how you and your team are handling this very tough time?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't even presume to say that we're handling it any better or any worse than anybody else. You know, I think it's I mean, unprecedented type event like this, and I feel like we're doing
Yeah.
the very best that we can. You know, and I mean, we're doing a very good job. We had some recognition recently that I'm so proud of. I know that Rafi is really, you know, proud of this too. I'm talking about the Australians when the Australians came. So basically, we took the Princess Cruises out of Florida. All the Australians, you might have seen all the news. They all got stuck here at SFO. We have the big contracts for
Wow.
passengers for United. So we took the group, even when the full service says no, they couldn't handle it. So we took in,
Yeah.
there was like 133 passengers. We basically, we worked a whole weekend. They stayed with us for 3 days. And they were quarantined before on the cruise. They were just really upset,
Yeah.
so forth. And we did
Everybody saw that on the news. You bet.
yeah. We were just we did such a remarkable job taking care of them, and we actually gave them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We served them, which is we're a select service hotel and
Wow.
closed down our bistro almost at that
Wow.
point. You know, we're you know pretty much crashed. It had almost no occupancy at all, and the gear back up from that to you know from almost nothing. You know, it's back on. It's basically in saving modes. You know, cut off the lights, shut down the third floor. Let's do all this to let's ramp back up again. Everybody really pitched in and you know took wonderful care. And so, anyways, we got them all taken care of. Them checked out, back to the airport. They were off to Australia. The entire time we were hosting United Airlines, the ambassador. You know, a lot of people from you know the consulate that were over here. We gave them. You know, our meeting room, we have a 2,000 square foot meeting room so they can basically social distance a little bit, you know, and then all talking to them. And I would give my little updates to the group about, you know, hotel stuff. And then the counselors would talk and everything else. But basically they sent the most wonderful letter, consulate out of DC to Marriott about us and everything else. And it just hit our ownership and United Airlines came back and you know, did a wonderful job and taking great care of them and stuff. But I mean, it was a challenging.
Yeah, it was.
It was very challenging. I made Rafi work harder than ever. I actually jumped in our shuttle van, our hotel shuttle that you typically goes to the airport. So it's got a lot of room in the back. And I went down to our Courtyard in Foster City, that's running like 1% occupancy, and I took all of their food. I mean, all of their food. I basically cleaned out their kitchen and so brought it up here so that we can cook food and stuff for them. It was pretty awesome. So that was kudos to the team. Now it's about we typically do BT, so we're at YouTube headquarters. So we take YouTube business and other types of e-commerce type of business for our business transient sector, and then we do a lot of airport type of business. And so now we have changed. We typically are very transient type of business, but we have changed to a new model now. Now we are extended stay, and we're taking in first responders, and we have a lot of business for healthcare.
Wow.
So we're taking care of
you adapted.
Essential workers and everything, which is not something that I felt like we would be the most accustomed to. But we are a 33-year-old hotel, generation one, that has little patios and stuff, kind of that old Courtyard model. And it's nice because people are not so isolated in their rooms. They can actually go out to the Courtyard, out on their little balconies and patios and stuff, and at least get a little bit of sunshine.
That's good. That's good. That's awesome. Well, you were recognized for that, and you saw how powerful that was when they recognized you for being so accommodating and taking such good care of them.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Good. Yeah, it feels great. So I'm sure
indeed
that's the same kind of recognition that you know what we did this last time is we bought into, and this was actually Rafia's. I was like, I don't know how it's going to work, but Rafia bought into the little, what are they, the little sculpture with the plaques?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the upgraded program, now they have like the little statues and stuff, you know, and we gave our first one out for January, you know, instead of the plaques. I mean, she was like blown away, like, oh my God, this is amazing. So
yeah, it's definitely more of a more prestigious option for sure.
Right. Oh, you know what?
You know,
I know I don't have too much time with you guys.
You're all right. Go ahead.
A little talky, but it's there is one other thing that I want to share with you guys now that I have you your attention. Might not have it again, but now that I have your attention,
you got it anytime you want.
So you won't believe it. So I have to tell this one story because it's absolutely wonderful about my employees. So this one time we were I had the best crew. I was young, and my first general manager job was in Boulder, Colorado. Okay. And basically I'm still, you know, getting used to managing housekeepers and this and that and so forth. And thank God I had a very strong housekeeping manager. His name was Jesus. And so he was very strong. As a matter of fact, I promoted him first time in a long time and put him in charge of maintenance and housekeeping. And he was just a wonderful leader. And, you know, somebody who's going to be at that, he's still at that hotel today. He's going to be there until he retires and stuff. And so anyway, the Home with Suites in Boulder, Colorado. And basically there was a death and one of our housekeeping inspectors, her mother had passed away. And we were like, I was like, oh no, that's horrible. And she's home, and oh, you know, she won't come back for, you know, a few days, and we're going to give her bereavement pay and so forth. And, you know, we won't see her for next week. Right. But Jesus goes, listen, Jonathan, you know, this is our culture. What we do is we go right now, we're going to get a bunch of flowers and we're going to take it to her house. I was like, we're going to what? We're going to take flowers? We're like, yep, we're all going to get into the shuttle van with the flowers and the housekeepers in the shuttle van, and we're going to take it to her house. Right. And so I was like, oh, wow, that's okay. Let's do it. You know, that's great. You know, let me get my P card and stuff, and we're going to go and purchase. So we went to the grocery store right next door, and then we end up going to her house, which is on the outskirts of Boulder a little bit. It's a trailer where a lot of the housekeepers had lived and stuff. And we pull up and we go into the house and everything else. And, you know, it's a devastating event. You know, she's sobbing, and, you know, we give the flowers and we spend a little bit of time with her and stuff. But this thing will always affect me, is because, and on her, she had pictures when you first walk in on her wall. She had a couple pictures of her family and stuff, and she had her Employee of the Month plaque hanging right there with her family and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. Actually, she had a couple of them because she's been Employee of the Month a couple times. She's wonderful and everything else. So she had her plaque on the wall, and I was so impressed by that and so touched by that. And that really reaffirmed my, you know what, this is a very powerful program. And you know, that's why I basically, every hotel that I go to, I instill that, something that they can keep for those wonderful achievements. So anyways, I wanted to share that with you because I thought that was really great.
I appreciate that. And that's a real world story. And I appreciate you sharing that. That was really good.
Great.
Well, anyway, is there any final thoughts you want to share with the leaders out there in the country?
No, that's, stay safe. Yeah, stay safe. And, you know, we'll all get through this together.
That's right, buddy. Well, hey, Jonathan, I really appreciate you and you know, being with us today and sharing your story. And again, thank you so much for being a client. We greatly appreciate you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you
so much. Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Bye, Rafael.
Bye.